There's a lot of vibration.
Okay, obviously a hell of a lot has happened since the last video. I need to fill you guys in on what's been happening. Basically, there were 5 days between when I filmed the video and uploaded the video. It wasn't current. Between those 5 days, I got a hell of a lot done already. I managed to find an improved technical officer to come look at the airplane, give me an annual inspection. I was able to get over a lot of the obstacles in my way, really, in order to get this airplane flying. And I was able to get all my paperwork into the CAA the day before Christmas. And yeah, they were able to issue me the flight permit. It was just a marathon to get to that point. Another major obstacle we faced was when another prerequisite for the flight permit was to have a full avionics check done on the airplane. We ran into two pretty major problems during the avionics check. The first one was, look, this is an amateur built airplane, right? It's essentially in the US would be considered experimental. Here in New Zealand, it's considered microlights, class 2 microlights. And because they're in that category, I assumed, just like in the US, that you're allowed to put experimental avionics in the airplane. But New Zealand doesn't work that way. New Zealand, in order to fly in controlled airspace, requires you to have certified TSO'd avionics, so radio and transponder. So I have MGL avionics fitted in the airplane, a full glass suite, and that is not legal here in the sense that I'm not allowed to fly into controlled airspace with this airplane. So that was a major hiccup, and the transponder was also giving issues. I'll have to probably replace it with a new unit, which I'm postponing because it's not really worth going to Mode C. I'll just have to do ADS-B because 2020 is the deadline. But long story short, not the biggest hurt right now, something I want to solve in the next coming weeks. I'm trying to hunt down, you know, a radio and a transponder that is TSO'd that I can put in the airplane. But it wasn't a hindrance in the sense that I'm still allowed to get a flight permit. So we had to remove the transponder because it was faulty. And we had to class the radio as a level 3, and that meant I could get the flight permit. And boy, was that a relief. Like, it was just tremendous. It's hard to explain when you've put this much time into building something and you just have this enormous, you know, literally the hundreds of hours I've spent in this workshop working on this plane. You know, you're constantly imagining the day that you get to enjoy it and fly. And there's this internal anticipation. And yeah, it was just this immense buildup. And the day that I got the flight permit, I was just ecstatic. Like, I could not sit still. I immediately went to the airport and was like, all right, I need to start getting this thing ready for flying now. You know, like, it's final checks time. And then just for like 2 days, weather was kind of crap and I still had a couple of things to sort out. And it was just like, I could not sleep. I was so excited about, you know, flying this airplane. The 12, 13 months of anticipation to, you know, just got to the point where it was finally time. So yeah, that's kind of the story of how things happened so quickly. I know a couple of you guys on Instagram, you know, saw progress. I do share things more up to date on Instagram. So if you don't follow me on there, then go follow me on Instagram. Things are a bit more real time on there. When the day finally came, there was definitely like a lot of anticipation and nervousness, I would say. There's a lot, you know, you're constantly running things through your mind of what could possibly go wrong, what to expect, what to prepare for, all of that. And that's where I really failed as a filmmaker. And in a lot of ways, this reminded me of the Round the World flight, where I was just so concentrated on doing a proper job as a pilot. And I just did not have any leftover processing power to be a creator and a filmmaker in that situation. And it was a pretty serious flight. So filmmaking just was not a priority. You guys will see now that I had a wing camera on, but inside I couldn't be bothered trying to find mounting points and stuff. It just seemed like a major distraction. Needless to say, the flight did not go as planned. It very quickly became a chain of things that were going wrong. And I realized on downwind, there was a situation where I was like, I realized that this is like the whole Swiss cheese phenomena, right? Like, I'm already dealing with 4 problems here. If anything else goes wrong, this is gonna lead to something nasty. And it was definitely pretty damn stressful. In hindsight, pretty crazy. But there is not a lot of audio for this flight, and I'm gonna have to talk you guys through it. So I'm gonna grab my laptop and watch the entire flight and just give you guys commentary based on on what happened. At this point, I had already done a bunch of taxi runs. I also did a static engine run at full power, which with this fixed pitch prop was giving me around 5,000, 5,100 static, which is pretty good. That's a cruise setting, roughly a cruise setting. And yeah, I was pretty happy with that. So did a proper engine run, did a couple of high-speed taxis, and kind of lifted the nose, and just I could feel that the airplane was carrying itself and that there was no major control imbalance. Okay, so here's the things that I was primarily concerned about on the first flight. Obviously, very basic and really isn't a concern, but you still have that in the back of your mind, is whether the flying surfaces are gonna remain on the airplane. So your wings, your horizontal stabilizer. The other thing is obviously an engine failure. This is the first time this engine is running at this power setting with airflow, etc. This is a used motor, so it's been a very, very long time until since it's done this, and I've done considerable maintenance on it. So I was definitely concerned about a possible engine failure. And then control rigging. That's usually with these test flights is an issue. You have a slight right wing or left wing bias, or a pitch sensitivity, or something is off usually with these first flights, unless you're flying an RV that they're usually pretty true. So that was something that I was concerned about, whether that's gonna cause an issue. And then yeah, beyond that, maybe just instruments, stuff like that. Yeah, that was kind of the 2 main concerns, was engine failure and control rigging for me. Those 2 were pretty big deals. So yeah, at this point I had felt the airplane, got it up to about 40 knots, got it pretty light on its feet, and I could feel that there was no nasty habits left or right or whatever. So look, these are essentially very high performance airplanes. Their power to weight ratio is considerably more than a 152 or 172 or something. So things happen pretty fast. If you just gun it on the throttle, and it's gonna be 6-7 seconds and you're gonna be in the air. And that is not a lot of time to look at your temperatures and pressures and to just verify that airspeed's alive and all of these things. It does not give you a lot of time to assess the situation, which is partly why I did the high-speed taxi runs, but also during this initial takeoff, I did a pretty gradual increase in power to allow me to look at the airspeed, and then once I'm full power, glance down and have a look at the instruments to make sure they're good. And then it was just, by that time you're flying already. Things happen so fast, especially in this thing. Obviously I was pretty happy with everything because I took it in the air. I briefed myself pretty thoroughly on at what points do I abort this takeoff, etc. I also had a long runway ahead of me, so if there was anything, I could just put the nose down and put it back on the ground. And I also have an enormous amount of options to the right. This airfield particularly has a lot of farm paddocks and stuff that are available to land in. So I had everything planned out at this point. And as I hit about 60 knots, things changed pretty damn quickly.
There's a lot of vibration.
There was just this onset of pretty severe vibration just carrying through the entire airplane. And it was at the point where I could no longer just cut the throttle and land, But it also wasn't that bad at that point where I was gonna, panic. But it was definitely noticeable and had me concerned. Like I was like, okay, something clearly is not right here. And it's based on airspeed, because on the ground there was nothing going wrong, So my immediate protocol was to just pitch for climb and get high so I can, deal with whatever I need to deal with. And then also just make sure I keep the airspeed low, because if this was a control surface that was, fluttering or something, I didn't want to aggravate that and, take a wing off or take a control surface off. So just immediately keep it slow. And because it kicked in at about 60 knots, I try to keep everything 60, 65 knots throughout the flight. Okay, it's now at this point where things got even more bad. I realized that I instinctually was flying with quite a bit of right aileron input in. So I obviously had a control rigging issue at this point already, and it was a little bit more than I was expecting. Like it required a fair amount of input. So yeah, another thing to the list, now things are starting to pile up. So I've got pretty damn bad vibration that could be something severe. And I've got a control rigging issue. You can pretty clearly see there the amount of aileron I'm putting in. It's not lined up with the flap. There is quite a bit of control input required. So, and at this point, another thing piled on. The vibration was so bad that it was literally switching off my master switch, turning the key for me every time I turned it on. So yeah, I was losing avionics. I didn't quite realize it every time, so I was still talking to myself like I do. I'm quite a vocal pilot when I fly. So I was still speaking to myself and like running myself through all these issues. But I didn't realize that my radio had gone off and all that, because the EFIS runs on a backup battery, so if the main bus switches off, I'm not going to suddenly lose my airspeed and stuff, which is a good thing. But yeah, I didn't quite realize. So I looked over and I was like, oh, everything's dark, and then realized the key was off. I thought that was strange, and then I put it back on, and then as I put it back on, I could see the vibration just turn it back off. So yeah, that just kind of illustrates how bad the vibration was. And it was a really high frequency vibration. So yeah, another thing to add to the list. Now I'm in a pattern in a pretty busy training area, not able to communicate on the radio, and I'm having to hold the master on to do my radio calls, and then wait a few seconds to see if anybody's responding, and then dealing with the rest of the airplane. So things, they were still manageable, but I was definitely aware at this point that, these are holes in the Swiss cheese starting to line up, and if anything else was going wrong, this could potentially be an issue. I also then did a control check, so just to make sure I actually have right wing aileron authority. I was dealing with a left wing crosswind, so it was a pretty sturdy crosswind, around 8-10 knots. And I just did the mental calculation that, okay, this control bias is going to actually work in my favor for the crosswind landing. So, and obviously because the radio kept switching itself off, that's why I'm narrating this, because yeah, there was just very limited audio until I was on the ground. And yeah, at this point, with 10 degrees flaps in and things slowed up, it got manageable. First of all, the control bias was almost completely gone with the flaps out. I was slow, so the vibration disappeared because I was at idle power and I was slow. So things were just back to normal and manageable. And I had done my radio call, so the radio didn't matter at this point anymore. At this point, I was kind of calm because I was like, all right, we're good. I was carrying about 10-15 knots more speed than I needed, but first time landing, I just wanted more energy there to use if I needed to. You can tell I'm just keeping it in ground effect just a little bit long, just dissipating that energy that I had, and then just put it down. And it was pretty damn relieved to be on the ground, I'll tell you that.
Holy shit, that was stressful. Definitely some bad vibration going on. And the master switch keeps turning itself off. So I'm gonna have to sort that out.
So here is kind of what happened after that. Obviously, adrenaline was high. I was kind of, fatigued, and it's like when you land after a situation like that, like your body just drains completely. All right, my camera died and I didn't realize it, so I was blabbering on for quite a while. So I'm gonna have to recap that. But anyway, so I have the cameras rolling, and that was able to help me systematically solve every problem without having to go fly again or risk anything. Very, very valuable for sure. I wish I actually in hindsight had taken the energy to mount the cameras properly, because just having a view of the instrument panel would have helped a lot in diagnosing the issues, but I had enough information with what I had available to me. So I just kind of put the airplane away, calmed down, and then was able to recollect on the flight and kind of, take things or kind of revise them in my head. And it's funny how quickly you actually lose detail of what was happening, and having the footage just helped so much. So yeah, that's kind of what happened there. I was super excited to get the airplane up in the air, and yeah, being back on the ground was definitely a relief. But what was a bigger relief was that it was all still manageable. The problems, it was nothing major. And that means that, the airplane is basically good to go. Okay, so yeah, there's gonna be another video where I talk about all that and take you guys flying, and we actually just enjoy the airplane, and I'll show you what it can do. But for now, just a quick update. Because of the pace of things and the fact that, I was not expecting to get this airplane done so quickly, but also I knew that there were gonna be possible delays and stuff. I have completely cleared my January and my February. I'm gonna remain in New Zealand, and I'm gonna iron out all the issues on this airplane. And then once I'm completely comfortable, we're gonna pack our bags, all of us. All of you guys out there in the YouTube world, we're all going on a pretty epic adventure. I'm gonna, just go on a massive New Zealand flying adventure. All over there, we're gonna do the North Island and the South Island, and I'm gonna try and daily vlog it, and I'm gonna try and take you guys along every day and share this great adventure with you guys and use this airplane to its fullest potential while we still can, and while it's summer here, and while things are pretty good. New Zealand's a beautiful country, and I'm excited to share that with you guys. So that's the update, that's what's happening. There are gonna be a lot more videos, so I'm not gonna keep rambling now. Tune in tomorrow or the day after, or whenever I get that video up. I'm gonna try and do it as quickly as possible, of solving the issues and going flying again, and how good everything is.